Hello, everybody. Pardon the grass cutting. That is probably gonna be a little loud, but I wanted to get on a little early today, so we can kind of dive right into things. So if it gets too loud, I will cut down the. Let me do a little mini camera adjustment here. It looks a teeny bit off. A little bit better. A little bit better. I will close the window if it gets too loud, but hopefully it'll be fine. I want to get into reality iterations today, which is a little bit lighter topic than we usually talk about, but that's where I want to go. I will check the chat after about the 30-minute mark, just to kind of keep me focused on one kind of thing and not to get a little distracted. So if you have any questions about iterations of reality, you can just pop them in the chat and I'll get to them at the end. Now, I'm going to talk about time here, which I don't normally like to get too delved into time because it does separate us off and it doesn't really exist. So our human has to chronologically group things into past, present, future, because that's the only way it knows how to track something. It's more of a marker point for the human consciousness, right? It's how it keeps everything. It's funny because it tries to keep everything separate, but it also kind of blends everything together at the same time because our human consciousness is so hung up on the past and worried about the future, so it blends it all together, yet it keeps it all like it's separated. Whereas in reality, time doesn't exist. It's more of a vibrational iteration of what reality we're in. And it all does blend together, yet we're just in one moment of, and we're in one moment of it that doesn't really affect the other moments technically. Technically that's going to be true, and then it's not going to be true in another sense because it will affect how you remember certain moments in the iteration of that reality. So I was talking to someone on Thursday, and they wanted to start homeschooling their kid, and that was one of the reasons we were talking, but they had a business that they had, and they were like, well, I really can't make any more money with this current business I have. Like, this is the only thing I can do with this business. I've maxed out right on how much money that I can make. And one of the things she said was, I know that's, right away she went into, I know that's negative, that's fear-based, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yes, it is those things. It is all those things, but it doesn't mean it's not true. It doesn't mean that you haven't tapped out of the iteration of the reality you're in, that this is the max this job is going to do for you, right? It doesn't mean there is not other opportunities. It doesn't mean there's not other things you can do. But in this current iteration, you might be maxed out here. I know I had a lot of realities where I maxed out on how much money I was making. Nothing was coming more in that reality, and it wasn't because I didn't want to work for it. It was because I wasn't going to be given it by my universe, because all I was going to do was buy more stuff that bogged me down to that reality, right? Because when we start on our journey, we don't understand there's so many iterations of realities, and certain things are here to support certain stuff, and after a while, this can't support that. You're in a different iteration. Usually I'll talk about it in different frequencies, but today I want to talk about in iterations because I want to talk about time slipping, and which is a good way to kind of segue into that. So if you're in a different iteration, what you're doing now will support a certain amount of stuff that you have, but you're not going to be able to keep going up because in this iteration, you're only going to support this much, right? And that's it. Because if you are given more, you're going to support the same old stuff. It goes back into, what are you supporting? Human stuff, human aligned stuff externally driven, or are you supporting your own soul journey and to help other people? What are you really trying to support with more money? Yourself or everybody else? Now, for a while, we have to kind of double down and support ourselves, right? And make sure that we have what we need so our vibration can raise, and then we can assist other people. But a lot of times people kind of want to skip that part. They want to start on the soul journey, continue on the soul journey, but double down and put it back into human realities because we're not ready to leave them behind. It did the same thing for many years. So when I talk about it from I did it. It took me a long time to figure out why it didn't work, why it always topped out a certain amount of money. And no matter what it was, I could not get past that amount of money. Well, you see other people kind of going past that amount. Sorry. Every time I do this, there's noise in the background. You see all these other people in your reality, and they're going way past that amount, and they're doing all these things, and you start the comparing game. How come they're making this work? How come they're making this work? Technically, they're in a different iteration of their reality, and there's a reason for that. We can't judge our journey by somebody else. We always want to, because that's what human consciousness does. It's going to compare and it's going to judge. That's all it does. It wants to make sure that we are always worried about something external to distract us from our internal journey. And when we get in the chase for money, the chase for fame, the chase for status, the chase for whatever we're trying to achieve, we lose focus of ourselves. You know, we don't even know who we are anymore because we're so focused on what everybody else is doing, and we get driven to that, and we get driven to what everyone else wants us to do, and we almost internalize it, that's what I want to do, but is that really what I want to do? Because when you really start to pull back the layers of what you were trying to achieve, when we start going through our awakening and then later our ascension, none of that stuff really mattered that much, because if it made us that happy, we wouldn't be searching for something else. You know, we wouldn't be going on to something else. A majority of us had basic needs met. You know, we had cars, we had homes. It's not like we were all in a completely different subset of the population, right? We all had a lot of this stuff, but we still weren't happy with that. So us wanting to make more money, to double down on all the stuff that doesn't make us happy, our universe eventually kind of puts a kibosh on that. It could bring you extra money to support soul-aligned things, soul-aligned classes, soul-aligned, you know, education, more holistic treatment, different things, different trips you might want to go that are going to be more for your soul than for the other things you might think they're for. Extra money might come for those things. When it really gets down to, I want to really dig in, you know, I really want to dig in and make more money on this to buy more of this stuff. That's where the iteration starts to really be apparent. Like you're not in that story. You know, that's a different movie. That's not where you are. I know you want to do all this stuff. That's not where you are. You're not there. It's not going to work there. You're in a different vibration. All that stuff you want to be able to do can't support this stuff. Because that stuff you're trying to support and grow more of is not really what you wanted to do in the first place. And if you really want to have more time with your kids, then making more money is not going to be able to, and working more isn't going to really achieve that end goal of what you want to try to do. So you start to see yourself kind of splitting off a little bit. And what's going on in my reality? Why is this not working? Why is this not coming together? Why can't I have this to support this? I just did a video. I think I actually did a stream similar to this last week on this topic. So I don't want to go too far back into that. But just keep in mind that every reality we go into, whether we're talking at frequency based, you want to talk it's a different iteration of the same one. It's designed a certain way. It has a certain infrastructure to it. It has a certain cadence to it. It has an energetic component to it. It has many energetic components to it. But it's going to be directing you one way or the other. And I want to bring that in now because August, right after we get out of the summer solstice, we go through the Lion's Gate, we start getting into the fall equinox, you start to really be able to see the cadence of what's coming for the next template, the next year, 2025. It's already coming in. It's been coming in for months, but you start to see the subtle differences in everything. Why these things matter. Why all of a sudden you feel drawn to do this, you feel drawn to do that, but you have all this other stuff in the way of doing it. We have our judgment in the way of doing it. We have, but I don't know how I'm going to afford to do that. How do I afford to do that? And keep all this stuff going. And that's where the disconnect comes. Because I want to do this, but I want to keep all this going. When maybe it's supposed to let all that go and start this whole new thing. And we don't like that answer. We don't like to let go of stuff. Human consciousness, it literally has to be pried out of our dead hands. We don't want to let it go. No matter what it was, no matter if it made us happy or not, no matter what memory we have around it, whether we have bad memories around it, good memories around it, polarizing words, but I'm going to use them. It doesn't matter. We will not let it go. We will go down with that ship. We will go down holding on to that last piece of that wreck because we don't want to let it go. But we want all this too. And that's when you see a lot of people start to, some people say you can get off the ascension train. I've had a lot of people I've known that have kind of been like, oh, you go as far as you want to go and you don't have to go anymore. I do not feel that is true. I feel like you can delay certain things as long as you want to. You can get, I'm going to use the word stuff, but you're really not. You're just kind of parking yourself there in a different iteration of a reality, a different timeline for a while and kind of ride it out to the end. But at some point it ends. Whether it ends tomorrow, it ends 4 years from now, because that's how long you can stretch it out. You can only park for so long, and your universe is going to say, now you got to go on. You got to go on because there are people waiting for you. There are people that you're supposed to assist. There's people that are going to assist you later on. And if you stay here, you're missing out. You're going to miss all those marks, And I've said a zillion times, we don't really miss our mark. We technically can't miss our mark. And that's when it starts getting really compressed, really tight, really suffocating in our realities because we have to be somewhere else. We're in the wrong iteration. We're not supposed to be here anymore. We got to move on. If we don't move on, everything starts getting harder and harder and crushing and crushing and crushing. And a lot of us will will keep doubling down to stay in the reality. We'll I'm going to create more things for me to do here. Let me get another animal. Let me get this. Let me get that. So I have more things to busy myself with. So then I can't leave, right? Oh, I just got a promotion. Oh, I just got a new project. I can't leave my job right now. There's no way I could leave. I've heard that excuse so many times. Oh, I can't possibly leave. They would never let me quit. They would never let me walk out. Trust me, when it's your time to go, they will let you walk out. They will let you walk out. They'll replace you in 2 seconds. It is a different iteration. It's a different reboot of the game. It doesn't matter. You're gone. You're not there. No one's going to care. We care more because we want to fit. We want to fit into a reality. And what you find is as you get toward the end of the timelines, if you want to say you're into the end of that iteration of that reality, however you want to explain it to yourself, the more we go along and the more we stay in them and stay in them and stay in them, you find you don't really fit anymore. People aren't as nice as they used to be. People aren't as welcoming as they used to be. All of a sudden, these little subtle things you notice start becoming very big things later on. Subtle things that even if you notice some subtle things around the summer solstice, things that look like, oh, I don't really know if that's going to be able to continue. And let me keep going. All right now I'm at the Lion's Gate, around that timeline, around the 8/8, and now it's very uncomfortable. Now it just doesn't seem like I need to be here at all anymore. I don't feel like I'm contributing anything. I don't feel like I'm really doing anything. And the more we keep going down those roads, the more we find that we don't belong there. They're doing us a service, kind of kicking us out of there because we're not supposed to be there anymore. Tick-tock, the time is up. We got to move. And we don't want to do that. And when I see people who start having all these ideas of things they almost know they're supposed to do, which I almost envy. There's a part of me that envies when people are in that part of their process because I never quite knew. I was like, I never really could have had that. Like, oh, I really feel the need to go do that. I really feel the need to go do that. I can't say I ever had that. So when I see someone who gets such a strong push towards something and they just know everything's leading them in this direction and it's just being able to bring everything with me to travel in that direction doesn't make any sense. It reminds me of, it was a critic I watched that watched the show Willow. And I didn't watch the revamp of that video or the revamp of that series. Or I guess it was a movie that became a series. I didn't watch it, but there was apparently these people traveling over long distances and they had this wagon and the wagon kept breaking and they kept taking the wagon with them and they kept taking all the stuff in the wagon and going on and on. The wagon would break. Everything would go crazy with the wagon. And the critic is like, just fucking burn the wagon. Why do you keep dragging this wagon with you? It's slowing you down so much. Just burn the wagon. And we will do the same thing in our realities. We don't want to burn the wagon. We don't want to let all that stuff go. I don't care if we're pulling it uphill. Like someone pulling a boulder uphill. we will just continue to drive this wagon in the ground because we don't want to let it go. It slows us down. It slows down different realities. It slows down on our creativity because it's keeping us stuck, and we can't reach the higher consciousness of a different reality when we're so tied down to the old ones. So it's so funny to me when I hear people explain things a certain way, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's very true. We will just burn the damn wagon, just let it go and just move on. Why do people keep trying to drag this wagon everywhere you go? And it is just the one, I feel like I almost harp on it in a lot of my stuff, because it is this one pitfall we get to where we want to kind of do it, whether you know what it is or not. Like, I was in the camp, I didn't know what it was. I didn't want to do what I was doing. In my human realities, I knew that, but I don't really know what else I really want to go do. I just don't want to do that. I know this is a no, but I don't really know. Or you're in a camp where you know what you want to go do. I want to start homeschooling for children, or whatever it is. I want to write this book. I want to do a movie. I just want to travel and do a travel blog so people can see all these beautiful things. Whatever it is that you're super excited about, you want to go do. Really look at what you're trying to bring with you. Look at what you're packing in the wagon to go, because a lot of times that stuff is going to keep you from getting there, because the different vibrations, all these things exist in different timelines. That reality where you're doing that thing isn't meant to support this reality. It'll support a different reality. But if you never let go of this one, you don't see the reality it's trying to support. So you just say, it doesn't work. And it doesn't work. It's like oil and water. It is not going to mix because it's vibrationally too different to mix. It cannot mix. I was watching something today on time slipping, which is, I mentioned the Y-Files before. It's this really fun channel if you have a really linear person that never wants to explore any of these topics. It's kind of a fun channel to get someone onto. If you're super linear. The Secret's another great book if someone's super linear. Just kind of open them up to something else. And the Wi-Fi does a good job of opening these topics up. And then at the end, they try to use a lot of human logic to kind of debunk them. But it's just kind of the fun of the journey, and different things they'll talk about. And how particles react a different way when they're being recorded. Like when they're being recorded, they will react the way we expect them to react. Particles will do exactly what we expect them to do. But when it's not being recorded, they act more like waves and not particles. Because once we put our consciousness into it, watching it, now we're putting our belief of this is how it is, and now we kind of imprint that reality, this is how it is. If we can't see it, it's going to do what it wants to do. If we're not watching it and putting our beliefs on it, to me it shows how strong our beliefs are, that we can create whatever we want to create. And we do create whatever we want to create. We create the whole realities all around us all the time. We just don't realize we're the ones creating it. We think it's somebody else. In the beginning, we're just a victim to the whole damn thing because we don't realize it's us. We're the mad scientists behind the whole thing. But they talk today about time slipping and how people would be walking and all of a sudden they're in 1950 or they're in 1814 or whatever it was. It was a lot of different ones they went over. And to me, it's just different iterations. Is it true? Of course it's true. Why can't it be true? Our human consciousness wants to say, well, that can't happen. Why can't it happen? It happens when we dream. When we dream, we live in a multi-dimensional, no time, no space. Why can't we do it when we're waking? Usually it's funny because all these happen when they were walking, which I thought was funny. Everyone did it. They were walking, and all of a sudden they're in a different space. Totally different. What we would call time. To me, just dimension. This is a dimensional rift, especially if to me, something calls them there. It almost reminds me of, if anyone ever watched the show Outlander. Was it Outlander? I think it was Outlander. Yeah. Where she'd push the stone and she sucked through at a different time, and it was, something has to be calling you on the other side. To me, it's almost a physical representation of exploring what your human's going to say is a past life, but it's just a similar energetic signature to a current reality you have going on, right? So if something is going on concurrently in a different multidimensional reality, and it matches something going on with you here, that's more important than the whole story of what the other is going on in that existence. It's the energetic marker. It's the energetic, what's locking it together. What's calling it forth so you it's even in your awareness because it's something similar going on. Energetically, it's similarity there. Whatever's going on over there is going on over here. It might not be exactly the same reality setup, but energetically it's the same. The same program's running over there, it's running over here. That's why I'm getting that. That's why I all of a sudden wanted to go get a past life reading. I see a lot of people get into that in the beginning of their journeys because, I want to explore that, right? But they get so bogged down, and I did the same thing. You get so bogged down with the story of, oh my God, I was a princess. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I was an Egyptian goddess, whatever it was. It doesn't matter. But we get all bogged down on that. We don't really want to look at what's the lesson. Forget about all the dressing around it. It's just a different iteration. It's a different dimension. It's just something else happening right now. What's energetically going on? Because that's what's going on here. That's why when you see, if you go back and continue to do past life readings, which you're going to deem as past because it's not in this time, even though, like I say, it's just multidimensional concurrently running reality that you haven't cleared yet. So we get this stuff so we can clear it. We get that memory so we can clear it. And if you can't hit that memory, you'll find a person that can try to hit it for you, right? And then you can clear it. You can clear that energetic signature that links that reality together, that clears that dimensional reality. Because you cleared the marker, in a sense. You cleared the energetic match. It's cleared. So now you don't have to go through that again. So it's the lesson in it. But when you're walking and you're looking down, which I will bet you all these people were when they were walking, because that's what, until someone calls it to your attention, you're looking down. That's what a lot of us do when we walk. You're thinking about the past. So all of a sudden, oh no, now I'm actually physically in the past and I'm looking around. People call it a wormhole. People will call it, what is it? What is it? It's just your consciousness expands enough where you can see through. I've known a lot of people who could see through space and time physically. Some people just see it in images. I'm more an image person and very strong clairaudience. That's always been how I have developed. But a lot of people, I knew people who could see it, like right in front of you, People will see it like a movie strip, Other people will just, people who don't even have any awareness of any of this kind of stuff will just walk in and all of a sudden I'm around people that are dressed like it's 1715 and I don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden I flip back because you can't hold the consciousness. You can't, your body's gonna, and they always have the same symptoms, right? They're dizzy, they don't feel well. Higher consciousness coming in, permeating the body, and then they shift and all of a sudden they're seeing all this other stuff. A zillion reasons why, right? It opens them up to something else. It gets them excited about something else besides this physical reality. A lot of these type of, whether you want to call them, whether humans going to call them out-of-body experience, time slipping, something called them there. There's an iteration of them there. There's a aspect of them there going through something. That's why they're there. Everything's connected to you. You can't go somewhere without you being there. Some iteration of you is going to be there or you can't be there, right? Whether it's time slipping or people want to go into the human paranormal activity or telepathy or all these kind of human words they put around it, the power of thought, positive thinking. These are all human terms that almost start to open the door to consciousness. They just open the door to something else, open the door to what if all these things happen. Our leading scientists will tell you time does not exist. Reality technically doesn't exist. Gets more into the simulation theory. Who's running the simulation? Well, we're running the simulation. Now, do we believe our brain power can be that strong? A lot of human scientists don't believe it can be that strong. But we know different. We know if we can create all of this, we can, and this is not even us really trying. Wait till we start trying to create a reality, what we can do. So even when you look at all these different almost, or a vortex. You'll hear the term vortex. Higher consciousness language. You'll hear vortex all the time. Like, what's a vortex? It's just a passageway to another reality, a different timeline. Like, where am I going? It doesn't surprise me that the majority of people flip back into the past because that's where our mind is always at. Our human consciousness is always in the past. And until we go through a certain amount of our ascension, I believe we stay there for a while until we start clearing a lot of that stuff. We can't utilize our dream state to do all that stuff in the beginning because we don't even have the capacity to get into a consciousness in our dream state to clear until we're much farther into our ascension process. We're more using it to just work out day-to-day stuff. We can touch on other dimensions here or there. We start to achieve a certain amount of psychic ability in our dream state, especially right before we wake up, right before we go to sleep. But we haven't really tapped into it yet. So when we're in kind of these, what I'll call them the early phases, kind of the gateway to the fourth dimension, things are kind of going shitty in the human reality, but you're not quite, you're kind of inching going over, but you're not quite sure. There are some people that are just more connected. You know, I see a lot of people that don't really ever completely go into the human reality conscious altogether. They're always just a little more conscious. They're just a little more conscious than everybody else, you know, and that's how they came in. So it feels like they're kind of always into that, you know, always into Reiki, or always into chakras, always into all that kind of beginning stuff, the spirituality stuff, all that kind of beginning, until we get to the real meat of it, which is our ascension, which is when we really have to start looking at, why am I trying to keep this going and get something else? Obviously, I'm not that crazy about this, or I would just stay here. But I want to get something else, and bring all this with me. But it just can't work. And I see the frustration in people on why it doesn't work, and we think we're a failure because we can't get it to work, and we can't get it going, and none of it works, and I don't understand, and we kind of put it on ourselves that we've done it wrong. You know, how did I do it wrong? How can I do this wrong and it doesn't work? We're not doing it wrong, it's just not supposed to work. It can't work that way. They can't exist at the same time. You know, it's almost like it's a different version of us living in a different reality. Well, we can't exist simultaneously. We can't exist together in that same timeline, right? We have to be separated, frequency separated. So we really have to be very cautious of when we're trying to retrofit something into supporting stuff that it just doesn't even feel like it's supposed to support. You know, I said it in the video I did last week. Soul-driven creativity endeavor, whatever it is. I don't want to call it a job because it doesn't even feel like a job. When you're doing this kind of stuff, it's not going to continue to create money for you so you can go buy your seventh car. It doesn't care about that stuff. It doesn't care about cars. It doesn't care about money. It doesn't care about a marriage. It doesn't care about any of that human stuff. You're on a different timeline. You're in a different reality. You're in a completely different book at that point. It doesn't care about that stuff. It doesn't care if you have it. It doesn't care if you lose it. It doesn't care if it gets repoed. It does not care. That is not its concern. Its concern is to get you on the path of highest consciousness at that moment. And that'll continually get higher as you go. But in that moment, that might be the highest one you can get to. And that's its job. It's not to support all the other shit. That's not what it's supposed to do. And as soon as we really come to grips with that and grieve the shit that we really didn't care about until we thought we were going to lose it, it's the adage, everything looks better when it's walking away. Until it was walking out the door, we didn't care if we had it or not. But the minute we might lose it, all of a sudden we really appreciate it more and we want it, whether we want it for security, whether we just want it because it gave us some identity. It gave us some kind of purpose, even if it was a purpose that didn't feel very fulfilling at the time. So, all right, I think I'm going to leave it there for a minute. I'll check the chat, see if I have anything. Okay, I don't have anything I have to address right now. So, I'm going to wrap this up a little early today because I want to go do a video on something else. So I'm going to wrap this up with, look at the subtle things going on around you right now. The subtle things are going to be the most important things in your world for a long time. And we don't see them when we're in our human consciousness because we're so distracted by everything else. We don't see when our dimensions start to kind of pull apart. We don't see when reality's starting to go on that slow close and fade out and the next one's starting to come in, but it's just bits and pieces of it. You can see a glimpse of it here, you know, a glimpse of it there, but it's not really solidified yet. It's just kind of on the outskirts, really. We can kind of see all of that starting to form, but it's not quite there yet. But you can see the parts that are going to go away. And really be real about what you're feeling and what you're seeing, what's trying so hard to come in and what we're kind of blocking because we have all these reasons not to. You know, sometimes we get into negative thinking and we kind of, even though I don't really like the word, but just because you hear it so much, you know, if you don't believe it can happen, it can't happen. Well, that's true in a sense. But what are you believing that can happen? Believing I can continue to do something I don't really want to do or don't really enjoy. I'd rather go do something else. but can I really use it to support all this? Do I really need all this? And I think that's what happens with a lot of us as we go through our process. We realize we don't need all this. All this stuff we thought we needed, we don't need. You know, we don't need all this stuff. It just keeps us bound to something else. It keeps us in the rat race. It keeps us in that going around and around and around and around, and we don't need it. You know, it's just not stuff we need. It's not stuff that we it's not stuff that enriches our soul. It's stuff that distracts us from it. So nothing you're going to do that feeds your soul is going to fund something that distracts you from connections with people. I see so many people want to almost keep everything separated as far as even their connections with people. With all the technology nowadays, what used to connect us, you know, it's almost like it's marketed to connect everybody, but really keeps everybody separated. Because no one really wants to connect. They want to connect virtually, which really isn't connecting anymore. It's gotten very bastardized along the way. You know, like a lot of human realities will do to certain concepts. You know, it takes everything and it kind of just manipulates it and it bastardizes it and turns it into something completely different. And all of a sudden, what was meant to connect us and what we were sold on, in a sense, you know, the bill of goods we got was going to connect everybody. Instead, it separates everybody off because you don't know anybody anymore. You know, you really don't know what's going on with anybody unless you really, really connect with your own energy field to be able to read everything going on around you. But when we're so distracted on all this very superficial stuff that doesn't matter, none of it matters. It shows us how addicted we have kind of gotten to all of this stuff that just keeps everything separated in a silo, you know? So I think I'll leave it there today. I think you get the point. If you have a lot of stuff in the wagon, just burn the wagon. It's not worth keeping it. Because eventually your universe will put a bomb under that wagon and it'll be gone anyway. It won't let you keep it. And from someone who's given away just about everything she had at one point, you won't miss any of it. You won't remember it. You won't miss it. You won't even remember what it was, what you had. It doesn't matter. It will cease to matter because it just ties you to all this old stuff. So, okay. I'll see everyone later. Bye.